I said, look, Mum, I've got a great place to stay and I've got a great place to work and all these wonderful people are going to meet me at the airplane. But of course, none of that was true. It was the first time in my life that I came across a place where people would say, unless you've got the money, we can't do it. I just never thought that would happen when a child's in front of your face, you know. Sometimes the universe tells you what you have to do, and little kids' faces are the answers to all that. Sometimes they just have enough and they want to give up. So they need people like us not to give up on them. I suppose in life, Catherine, we always see the good in others before we see the good in ourselves as well. And it's a funny world we live in. It depends on what passport you own, as whether you live or die. They may not remember Moira Kelly and they may not remember Melbourne, but they know people in Australia were there when they needed them.
Don't Be Caught Dead, the show bringing stories of death back to life. Here's your host, Catherine Ashton.
Today I'm speaking with Moira Kelly. Moira Kelly is a celebrated Australian humanitarian who helped bring conjoined twins Krishna and Trishna from Bangladesh to Melbourne for their separation surgery in 2009. When teenager Krishna went into end-stage kidney failure during the COVID pandemic in 2021, Moira became a living donor for her, donating her kidney. Krishna's life has again been transformed as a result of Moira's gift. Thank you so much for being with us today, Moira.
Lovely to be here, Catherine. Thank you.
And I have to say that that is a very abridged version of a bio for you. And I'm sure more of your story will evolve. But perhaps if you can set the scene, you're the best one to do this. Most people will remember you as bringing the girls over from Bangladesh, but you have had a long history of supporting people and creating a charity, firstly with Children
First Foundation.
Yeah, Children First Foundation in 1999, and now you have the Moira Kelly Foundation. Can you tell me what got you started in this work, Moira?
The second organisation is called the Moira Kelly Create and Hope Foundation. But just as a child, when I grew up, I just heard about stories about Mother Teresa and the work that she was doing. And I just never really believed someone like that existed in the world. So I was just totally fascinated. And I just thought she was the most wonderful thing I'd ever heard about in my life. So I used to tell my family I was going to go work with her one day. They go, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So the day I sold my car and saved up my money from my airfare and headed to the airport, I don't think anyone really believed it was happening. So yeah, so my dream was to go work in Calcutta with Mother Teresa, and I suppose that's where the journey started. But before that, the year before, I had gone and spent a year with Aboriginals in Western Australia in a mission out there, and yeah, made my way back to Melbourne and saved up my money and sold my car and headed to Calcutta and worked with the person that I dreamed of all my life was Mother Teresa.
Two things, like that is amazing, but the fact that you even had the ability to travel to Western Australia and live in a community, that is phenomenal.
Yeah, it was with an organisation at the time called the Palatines. It was a fantastic year. And they had a mission in Perth and also one in Tarda, which is about 3 hours inland from Geraldton, or 4 hours. So yeah, it was a fabulous time. And I met some friends, and one of my friends from school, we went together, and then we met lots of other lay missionaries, and we had great fun. It was just fabulous. Yeah, that seems so long ago now, but it was just, I was young and carefree, and the world was my oyster, I suppose. And
And what
I was
age were you when you were there, Moira?
about 19 or 20, I think. 19 or 20, yeah, I think I was about that age, I think. Something like that, yeah.
And then you found yourself in Kolkata.
Well, then I came back and saved my money and went to Calcutta.
Yep.
And I remember getting at the airport, and my brothers were all there, my sister and mum and dad dropped me off, and they were all there at the airport. And my brother started saying, "You're not really going to let her go." And I'm thinking, what did they not get? And you always think as a kid, your parents are going to stop you or something. And I just turned around and I said, "Look, Mum, I've got a great place to stay and I've got a great place to work, and all these wonderful people are going to meet me at the airplane." But of course, none of that was true. But what she didn't know didn't hurt her. So I knew Mother Teresa was famous, so I'll meet her when I get there. So that's
Oh
what
my
happened.
goodness. So what were your plans?
I just knew Mother Teresa was famous. I asked someone when I got there, but I just didn't want anyone stopping me. And I mean, who do you write to? Mother Teresa, Calcutta? I don't know. I just went, and I just had the address. There's no Google those days, There was no
No,
Google.
this would have been when telegrams were still a form of probably
Yeah, yeah,
communication.
no, envelopes, yeah, all those things,
Yeah.
those days. Yeah, that's what you did, those envelopes. And yeah, but I knew she was famous, so Calcutta's can't be that big, I figured. So yeah, I did. And I suppose I would never let my kids do it, put that way, Catherine.
Oh, I know the irony, isn't it? And so tell me, what was it like when you first got off the airplane and you weren't meted by all of those people you promised mum?
I just had to be sort of toughen up a bit and say, okay, Moira, this is your dream come true. And I was a bit idealistic. I kept thinking, well, Mother's now closer than she's ever been before. So once I worked out which taxi driver wasn't going to rip me off, I ended up then going to a hostel in the city. And then once I settled into there, I was stuck to old maps. There's no Google, as I said those. And I'd ask
Yeah.
people in the street, which is the mother house, Mother Teresa. So yeah, so that's really how I got around.
Did you eventually find Mother Teresa?
I did. Look, I was very naive, and I just had this great thing in the world that Mother Teresa was going to be so excited when she met me. I didn't realize there were lots of Moira Kellys in the world who had the same vision to meet Mother Teresa. So I remember knocking on her door in the laneway at the big door of the mother house, and I took a big breath, thinking, "Oh my God, all my dreams are coming true." I thought, and I knocked on this door, and the door finally opened, and I was more shocked that Mother Teresa didn't answer. I just was that naive. I'm thinking, "Who on earth is this?" To myself, and I said, "Oh, hello, is Mother not here?" And they go, "Oh, come in, come in." And it was a mother house, so they have a lot of novitiates there, people trained to be nuns, and I said, "Oh, I've come from Australia. Tell her I'm Moira Kelly. I must have written a few letters. I don't remember." But I said, "Did she get my letters?" She probably got hundreds of letters off people. So I just thought they were waiting and so excited to meet me. So after a while, when I sat in this office and this nun who was looking after volunteers came down and spoke to me, and then I was sitting there and she sort of calmed me down. And then this big bell went off. I always remember this big bell coming off, and I remember looking out the window, and that's when I realized it was a novitiate. There were hundreds of Mother Teresas walking from one classroom to another, all learning to be nuns. I'm thinking, this is like something out of a nightmare. There's hundreds of them. Where am I going to find her in this? In this, it was just one of those funny little moments in my life. I remember looking back on that. But then when I found out, when I finally worked out where I was going to work at the home for dying destitute men and boys, and then also a place called Culligart for the dying, and a Sishu Bhavan, which means a children's orphanage. So I was so excited about that. I just happened to ask before I left, is Mother not here? And then they had to break the terrible news to me that Mother Teresa was actually not in the country at the time. So I was just couldn't believe Mother Teresa wasn't there when I left. But,
Because
you
I
know,
think
you,
for people who may be unfamiliar with Mother Teresa, like she was so highly revered,
icon.
so
Yes.
popular around the world,
Yes.
and was one of the leading peacekeepers. And like I remember as a child, I just looked up to her and thought she was amazing. To be a woman in this amazing role and be so much of a leader in on the world stage. Like,
Yeah, she was an icon. I mean, there's not a person in the world who doesn't know who she is. And I always say that she goes past generations. I can guarantee the children I speak in a school to tomorrow, your grandparents will know who she is, and
yeah.
your grandchildren will know. So, yeah, she's probably the world's most famous social worker, really.
Yeah, she really is.
Some dreams come true.
I think that's really beautiful, but I do find that it's rather funny that you had the moment where you realize that there was more than one Mother Teresa, and how are you going to find her in amongst all of the habits?
Yeah. Yeah, so
So talk me through, how long were you there with Mother Teresa?
I was probably just on 2 years in Calcutta, and she has, as I said, so many homes in Calcutta, so there's so many places. But I ended up working every morning with the Brothers of Mother Teresa for a home for dying destitute men and boys, and then the afternoons I'd go into Culligart, which is in another part of Calcutta, for the main home of Mother Teresa's for the dying destitute men and women. And I used to work in the Sisha Bhavans, which is the orphanages, sometimes in the afternoons and things like that. So yeah, they were wonderful days, and sort of everything you dreamed of doing in Calcutta really came true. You met lots of other wonderful, like-minded people from all over the world. And so, yeah, it was just a fantastic place to start your missionary work, really, I think. Yeah, it was fabulous. It was just a dream come true.
And when you left there, what did you aspire to do? What were your hopes and dreams from there?
I remember meeting this lady from Norway. Her name was Doreen, and she was an older woman, very glamorous and just a beautiful woman. And she'd worked in Africa and somewhere else. And I was so inspired by her stories and what she was doing with her life. I thought, oh, yeah. So I don't know. I just was really taken by her. And I remember I used to get the Newsweek magazine every week. I got that all over the world, actually, wherever I was. I got that delivered to me. And I saw an article once in America on children with crack and AIDS problems. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting area to go into. Wouldn't you love to do something like that in America and work with the homeless? So my goal then was to come back to Australia, work like crazy to earn the money to go overseas, and I had to keep running out of money. And so I thought I'd pop into Africa for a year, which I did. And then I went to the Bronx for 2 years and spent 2 years in the Bronx. So really what inspired me was the stories of other people and what they were doing in their life. And I thought, yeah, India wasn't enough for me. I just wanted to go somewhere else as well. And those days we always thought the Far East, but now there was so much mission that could be done in the Western world as well. You hadn't thought of at the time. Mother Teresa always said, go home, go back and look after your lonely and the people in your community as well. So yeah, she was a great one on their own communities as well. So, and she's got homes here in Melbourne, Victoria as well. She looks after people in Australia, so she's got 2 houses here in Victoria, in Melbourne itself.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
so
I wasn't aware of that.
yeah, she's got a soup kitchen in Gore Street, Fitzroy, and she's got a women's shelter for homeless women and children, also here in Fitzroy, another house. So people get a bit of a shock when they hear we have Mother Teresa looking after people in Australia as well, because sometimes we think of India, but she's all over the world. I think the only country she never got to, and one of her dreams before she died, she would always get to China, but she could never get there. That was one of her goals, was to set up a house in China.
That's
Yeah,
amazing. And so
yeah.
tell me, what motivated you to, start Children First in 1999?
I actually did it when I lived in Albania. I had a Children First Foundation in Albania because I'd gone from Albania from Bosnia. So I lived in Eastern Europe for 9 years, and I'd gone from the war zone, 4.5 years in Bosnia, to Albania. I was going to go set up a soup kitchen because they hadn't got a soup kitchen. They had a terrible situation of homelessness in Albania. That was the plan. Some friends in Ireland were going to send trucks out, and they sort of encouraged me. And so they were going to help me set up over there. So I went over on my own. I actually set up the Children First Foundation in Albania. And I remember I was working with the Sisters of Mother Teresa there one day, and I remember there was a turning point in my life. I was very determined not to do operations for kids anymore. I'd done so many of that in Bosnia. I just wanted to go back to, doing other aid work and not all this responsibility, taking kids from one country to another, and because there was so much that in Bosnia. So this nun asked me one day, "So Moira, what did you do in Bosnia?" I said, "Oh, sister, I took lots of kids to Australia, but a lot more to America and to Ireland, to Austria, to Belfast for operations." And I said, "Oh, really, Moira?" And she asked what the problems were. And, "Oh, Moira, there's children in Albania that need this." Albania was the only third world country in Europe at the time. And I said, "Oh, well, sister, I don't do that anymore. I've cleansed the old soul," I said. "But, you're very experienced. Your sisters are Mother Teresa, and you've got houses all over the world, and you have the finance." I said, "If your sisters want to do it, I'm happy to tell you how to do it." So about 2 days later, I was going into the sister's house, and it was distribution day every Monday. And I remember at the front of the gate, there was all hundreds of people lined up with their token. And I slipped to the front of the gate to get in to get my apron. And I had a very important job that day, Catherine. I was going to distribute cooking oil. My table was the cooking oil. And so they used to go from one table to another. So as I walked in the gate this day, I saw 3 children, and they were to the side of the sisters there in the entrance there, just below the foyer. And they were very disfigured. And I was so aghast, I was so shocked because I wasn't expecting to see it. And I yelled out to sister, I said, "Sister, sister, have you seen these 3 children down here?" I said, "Oh my God." I said, "What's going on with these 3 children?" And she was mopping the floor up on the balcony, and I couldn't see her, but I could hear her. And as she was mopping, she yelled out, "Oh, good morning, Moira, you arrived. I thought you might like to meet these 3 children today while you're here." So that
Ah,
was the sort of the but I needed to, maybe I'm meant to be doing that. So that sort of started the role with these children, starting operations for kids in Albania as well. So then it sort of hasn't stopped since then. So I never did get the mobile soup van started, but I certainly did lots of other things in Calcutta, in Tirana. And actually, Albania and Tirana is their birthplace of Mother Teresa, of course. She's an ethnic Albanian from Bitola in Macedonia. So she's an Albanian. So yes, that was a nice place to continue the work.
yeah. And tell me, when you say that you were doing operations, can you talk us through about what that was involving? Because obviously that's been coming consistent throughout all your life.
Well, when I lived in Bosnia, people kept arriving with sick kids, and once you took one child to America or to Ireland, then other people would hear about it. So I just started getting documents and paperwork on children that arrive at my refugee camp from all over Bosnia. It wasn't necessarily from my area. And then I'd send off to people in Ireland, and at that time I wasn't doing it in Australia, and to America. And I remember one stage in Mostar, I was up there at the container hospital, because on the East Mostar was all these containers set up by the South Africans, because Mostar was a divided city. So one side was the Croatians, the other side was the Bosnian Muslims. And so the hospitals were socially on the west side. So the Muslims didn't have really hospitals. So they had container hospitals. And I remember I walked in there one day and said, "Did you have any case of kids?" And basically they gave me a list of these 3 pages, and it was like 30 kids on it. I went, "Oh my goodness, maybe I've tackled more than I can chew." But then he said to me, "So when you've gone through that, Miss Kelly, no doubt come back and we'll give you the other 100 pages we have here. So he thought he'd never see me
Wow.
again, because I was a bit shocked when he had that many, because at the stage I'd done a few children, but I just thought I'd reach out to Mostar to see if I could help some kids there. And so, to make a long story short, I ended up getting the registrar for paediatrics at Massachusetts General Hospital to come out and spend a week with me in Mostar. And she went through all that list of paperwork of those children and some others. And she chose about, I think we had about 15 kids who were candidates to come to America. And there was a group called Nobody's Children that I hooked up with there, who were doing fabulous work in Romania and also just outside Boston in New Hampshire. And so we ended up about 6 months later with, I think, about 20 of those kids in Boston. We galvanized all the hospitals in Boston. They were phenomenal. So yeah, it was one of those magic moments. And that's where it all started, when I started taking big groups of kids like that. So yeah, sometimes it's a wing and a prayer you go by, but sometimes I think in life, Catherine, if you think about things too much, you never get anything done. So sometimes you just got to do it. I had that saying long before Nike. So everything in life, if you think too much about anything, will all be, put off with these things. So sometimes you just have to do it.
What point
But
did you move back to Australia, Moira?
I've never really felt that I finished in Albania. I'd like to have stayed there longer, but there was a few things that changed. That was one little girl from Albania who had a really bad heart condition. I took her to Belfast and she was operable, but they asked for lots and lots of money. They asked for like £60,000. And of course, I'm an aid worker, but one with no money, empty pockets. And I just never thought, it was the first time in my life that I came across a place where people would say, unless you've got the money, we can't do it. I just never thought that would happen when a child's in front of your face.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a really hard time for me. So they did a cardiac catheter, which was for free, was worth a few £1,000s anyway. That could sort of work out what was wrong with her heart. And she was a little Albanian, the cutest little thing you ever seen in your life. Her little name was Panvera. And it was such a long journey that time in Ireland with other kids, but she was my last one to see if I could get done, but it just didn't work out. And they said, look, if you want to bring her back here, I said, you can, but they said, Moira, she's operable, but she won't be operable within 6 months. And I said, what does that mean? I said, mean we can fix her now, but if you don't operate within 6 months, she won't be operable. She'll probably have a short life, probably live to about 12 or 14, 15 years of age. And I'd never even heard those words before, because sometimes you bring a sick kid to a doctor and a surgeon and think they're going to fix them. I use an expression, I have an innocent ignorance, which is a lovely place to be in life sometimes, and not accept the world for what it is. And so then, after a lot of tears, and I don't know, how do you take her back to Albania and say, look, I know what's wrong with her. They could have fixed her, but I just didn't have the money, because they just think everyone in the West has deep pockets. So
Mm.
that's when we found out. I rang some friends in Melbourne. They told me about, they do operate. They've seen kids on the news who go to Melbourne Children's, and they came from New Guinea and that. And they found out that we could get a heart operation done for $10,500. So suddenly that didn't sound so much anymore.
Yeah,
If you
compared
told
to
me
the
this 6 months
£60,000.
ago, yeah. So lo and behold, my friend Louise Warden that raised the money here in Melbourne. And then I had two boys that I'd heard about. It was 2 years trying to get them out of Iraq. It was a long story. It was little boys called Ahmed and Emmanuel. And it meant had to bring them forward as well, which was very complicated at the time. But I ended up having to get them out of Iraq and leave them in Jordan with the Sisters of Mother Teresa. And I had to leave Albania earlier and head to Australia with those two boys from Iraq and these other children, all because of Panvera's life, because otherwise she wouldn't have been operable. That was a terrible, terrible burden to have on your back of your head. So I left Albania sort of a little bit earlier. The boys came a bit earlier and they ended up in Oz. And then, yeah, and Panvera got operated and got saved. And yeah, it was phenomenal. She was a very blue child. She was a very, very sick little girl. And she had a major heart operation. She had a transposition of the greater arteries, which is an operation called a switch. Yeah, so that little girl's alive because of Belfast and because of Melbourne. So, and she's back in Albania living a normal life now. So that's how I ended up back in Oz so quickly, because a little child's life sort of dictated it. So, and there's not a listener out there that wouldn't have done the same thing. So, sometimes the universe tells you what you have to do, and little kids' faces are the answers to all that.
And
Yeah.
some of probably the most famous little kids' faces that we know that are associated with you, your adopted daughters, Krishna and Trishna, who we mentioned in the intro that you brought them here to Australia, to specifically Melbourne and the Royal Children's for operation in 2009. How did you first meet them?
Well, I'm actually their legal guardian alongside their biological mother, who lives probably about 10 minutes from here. So I brought her out to
Sorry,
Australia. And she doesn't
my
live too far. That's all right. A lot of people always say that. They call them Kellys, they call them adopted. So it doesn't matter. It's all pretty innocent. But we heard about them when I was in Melbourne. Actually, a plastic surgeon in Melbourne called me, who wasn't involved with the children's. And then I rang up a plastic surgeon I knew very well, Tony Holmes, who was notorious for his fabulous work and had done lots of kids with me in the past, especially from a little girl from Pakistan. It was a huge case one day. And I told him about these kids. I didn't know much about them. So I basically went over to Bangladesh. He said, bring them over, we'll see what's going to happen and what we need to do. And we thought at the time they had a heart problem. So I was dealing with the cardiologist here at Melbourne. We didn't think it was a head problem, really. They were enjoying, but we thought it was an issue with their cardiac issues, which they did have. That wasn't the primary problem. So yeah, I just remember meeting them in the private hospital in Bangladesh, and they were the tiniest little people, little Krishna, the healthy one. She was chubby and healthy and cute as ever. And then you had little Chrissy, who was the tiniest, skinny. You could see her ribs and you could actually see her heart beating through her chest. Yeah, it was a bit confronting. And wow, so I spent the time in the hospital with them just to try and get used to looking after them before I flew them here. So yeah, that I always remember the little ones sitting there in this little cot together, one on a nasogastric tubes and the other one was at a bottle, and she's just bumpy and laughing and smiling to see you. And I had no idea the journey that was going to unfold in that moment I met them. I had no idea. But yeah, that was the special day in my life, really meeting them there. Sort of couldn't wait to get them back to Australia so that someone else could take the responsibility of the medical side of them. So yes, that was where the journey all began with Trishna and Krishna.
And I have to say, I don't think I was the only person who waited with bated breath, waiting to see the outcome when they were separated. And that was like 38, 40 something hours, wasn't it? It was a long
Yeah,
time.
it was crazy. And that was their last surgery, but they had many operations before that. And some of the operations before that were just as dangerous, if not more, because the two neurosurgeons were separating them inside before the last lot was outside, was the cranio stuff. So yeah, that was a terror. I would never want to do it again, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And look, if it wasn't for the bravery and the dedication and the charisma of these surgeons and the people that said yes to the girls, they wouldn't be here. So it certainly wasn't just about me. It was a big team of the children's and those brave people who took it on, and the wonderful support crew I had around me and the girls as well. So there were a lot of lonely nights, I will tell you that. You're on your own at night with them, long nights, and they were very hard nights. You just hope they'd be awake every morning. You woke up, there was a few times you think like that, but yeah, it was a very difficult time, but you don't regret a thing. You never would. And you just had to always keep focused. And when something bad happened, you just go, okay, what do we do? What do we do now? And so, yeah, it was a bit of a journey. And they've made a documentary, but I've never seen the whole of it. Never. I couldn't watch it. I've only watched half of it, the documentary that was aired on Channel 7, but I just can't watch it because it sort of relives everything you went through because it was too real.
Yeah, and you were there for the first round. You don't need to see the replay.
Yeah, a bit too raw for me, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. And so the girls are now 18 years of age now.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, people don't realise that. I've tried to keep them out of the press for them to have a normal life as well. So it's their decision now to do their story. So Trishy has just done a story actually with Current Affair. She's 18 now because they've asked for a few times. I said, look, I'm not doing that. I just want the girls to have a normal life, but when they're their age, they can do what they like. So Trishy has just done a story that's going to air probably pretty soon. And she just wanted to have this opportunity to thank Australia for what they did for her and all the prayers and the doctors who never gave up on her and the people who are around me and the team. So it was her story of just saying thank you and look, because of the decisions you made, look at me. And she spoke on behalf of her sister. So it's something that she wanted to do and it was her choice. And so, yes, she's a beautiful, charismatic, outgoing, funny young lady. And she's very, very protective of her beautiful sister.
And tell me about your story. So, from the age of 3 to the age of 18, have you always been their legal guardian and have they actually resided with you here in
Yes,
Australia?
they came out when they were about 6 months, actually, when they came to Australia. Yeah, so from the start, yeah. So from the moment they landed in Australia, I slept with them every single night. So yes, they've always been my care. And look, they were really very sick little girls, and they had a lot of medical needs at home. So most of those kids would be left in hospital. But anyway, I think a good thing, a lot of people on our side, and the good Lord kept them healthy and kept us vigilant. So yeah, they had trackies, they had blood pressures going at night time, they had feeding tubes, they had injections. It's just sometimes it looked like a mini ICU in my lounge room, really. But those are just memories that go back so far now. And now they're just ordinary young ladies, really.
And their mother, Lovely, has always been involved as much as she can, from my understanding. Is that right?
Well, she went back for a couple of years to her family and then came back again. And well, the girls are older now, so she doesn't see them as much. But Trishy pops over there probably a couple of times a month for a nice curry. And she's got two younger children now, so she's sort of busy with them, and the girls have moved on. So they certainly saw Lovely a fair bit, and we've just become friends now. So it's more like an adult relationship, and she catches up with them when she does. But she's got a little newborn baby. She's only a year old now and a 10-year-old boy. So she's a busy mum with that. So she's just happy her kids are okay and done well. And yeah, so she's not far from here. And yeah, so she's sort of a family friend.
That's great to have that context for us. And something that only, obviously like came out very openly, much to, I think, your surprise last year when you were on the radio interview with Neil Mitchell on 3AW, was the fact that you had gone through the process of organ donation with Krishna during COVID. So I'm sure that wasn't like her end-stage kidney failure issues. Was that something that had been building or something that you were aware of after the
Uh,
original operation
well,
or?
when the girls were joined, one girl had high blood pressure, the other one had low blood pressure. So the one that had low blood pressure had low perfusion to the kidneys. So, of course, they were underdeveloped. But no one really thought that she'd have a problem until she became to adulthood. But they always say any child with a chronic illness, they can either sail through puberty or it hits them really hard. And it just hit Krishna so hard unexpectedly to all of the team at the kids. And yeah, she became a very sick little girl. So those stories you heard on the television that people waiting for ambulances like for 3 or 2 hours, that was me here. And
Yeah.
sometimes Chrissy was having seizures in this very room and waiting for ambulances to come. It wasn't epilepsy, it was kidney related. And they were just horrific times. And we got cancelled 3 times. And yeah, it was just a very horrific thing. And see, Chrissy's got special needs too, but she always knows the world's a beautiful place. And she, like all sick children, they always look at their mums. Mums are going to fix everything up. So when the time came when they said, she was going to have a kidney transplant straight away, I said, well, can I do that? Can I do that? Because I never knew how, I knew nothing. I only ever heard about donors who had died. I never heard about live donors. I mean, you might have heard about it, but I didn't really take it on board. And so now I'm just so passionate. I just wish I had another spare kidney because it was such an easy thing to do and it's such a good thing to do. And I look at Chrissy and I just sometimes can't believe that, wow, there's something I've really done to save her life. That's how I feel anyway. But then I found out there's like 14,000 Australians, people, mums and dads and uncles and aunties and cousins and sisters out there, brothers who are wanting kidneys. And I'm thinking, God, if everyone in Australia knew that someone like me can do to Krishna, she's of Bangladeshi origin, and I'm just an Aussie girl from Melbourne, and I've got the same kidney function I had before I gave my kidney away. So everything's back to normal to me. You wouldn't even know I had one kidney. I'm just so excited that I did it. And I was so excited that they said I could do it and I passed the medical. And I remember this great nurse telling me once when I was a bit upset when I heard Chrissy was so sick and he caught me in the downstairs of the children and says, Moira, you're okay? And his name was Brendan. I said, oh, he knew me from years ago from all my heart kids on the heart ward. And I said, oh, you won't believe it. Josh has just said Chrissy needs a kidney. He must be crazy because I was just so shocked. Josh was the specialist and he started telling me about it. So more, it's not as bad as it sounds. And, more, if you don't pass, you're going to get a great medical. It's all for nothing, and you find there's anything else wrong with it. So you get a medical that no Australian will ever have. So that was the selling gun, I think. I don't know. But the most important thing was that Chrissy would get a kidney and, you'd get over this really quickly. And yeah, she'd do so well. She'd never have to go on dialysis. And so he sort of probably with that reassurance I need to hear because I thought they were all crazy. What do they do? Why would you want to give Chrissy a kidney? She just got a new head. Why would you I couldn't understand how the world could be so cruel. But well, what a miracle we had was yeah, it was so easy too, it was amazing. The team at the Austin, they do the kidney transplants for the parents, for the children's, and they were amazing. It's very, very private and very separate, and you go through rigorous medicals. And I'm not really wanting to, I can let other people have it, but myself, so that was a bit challenging. But yeah, you found out I ticked all the boxes because not everyone can be a donor because you don't pass the medical. So I realized I was in that lucky group of, 1 in 100 that can be a donor. So I was just so excited and kept looking at Chrissy and had lots of tears. And it was a very special moment for my best friend Louise came along too, and Maz and Lovely would come to some of my appointments, and Lovely couldn't be a donor because she had diabetes. So she was there for some of my appointments and things like that as well. So she was certainly a part of that journey as well as my close friends, because you can't do without supports around you. You need that as well. The only hard thing for me really was the fact it was the first time in my life I couldn't be in the hospital with Chrissy because I had to be at the Austin. And I remember
Yeah.
Josh saying, well, Moira, if that's hard, some parents find that too hard, don't do it. No, 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 I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I couldn't believe it was that easy to say no. I said, no, 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 I want to do the kidneys. So Yeah, I couldn't believe it was that Chrissy would have to learn to live with that. So Marilyn, who lives in Whittlesea, and she stayed with Chrissy in hospital during the day, and I had someone at night. So someone who knew Chrissy really well, but Marilyn stayed with her 24 hours really well. I was in the Austin hospital, so that was the only tough thing. But she was unconscious a lot of it too. So
And tell me, what was it for you, a woman who has spent really her entire life ensuring that people can get the medical treatment that they need? How was it for the tables to be turned when you became the patient? What was some of the things that you learnt, through that process?
well, I'll be honest with you, I was really nervous. I hadn't thought about it until probably a month before. I was so focused on Krishna and what
Yeah.
was going on. Then suddenly, I started thinking, oh, good. I remember my good friend, Sister Fran. I said, God, I better work out what's going to happen with me. So I started Googling it, thinking, okay. I haven't even thought about it.
Moira, haven't you heard that one? Don't Google it.
I heard, don't, and I have learned that about a lot of things now. But I remember I was quite nervous then, thinking, oh, God, because the only time I ever had any operation was in Calcutta. I had my appendix taken out by Mother Teresa's surgeon. Actually, that's another story for the book one day. I think that was
Wow.
crazy. No. But anyway, and I remember one day, the turning point for me, because I started getting very nervous, thinking, oh God, and just I want to be knocked out. But there was one day I came into Children's Hospital. Trishy was taken again by ambulance, and she was really sick, and we're in the resus room, and then they put us into the treatment room to put a line into Krishna, because when the girls were joined, they lost all their lines because they had so many IVs in, and so they had to go into this room. And Trishy's always very traumatized by the hospital, and she's very good these days. And I just remember, because Trishy has got special needs, a lot of things we understand, but she doesn't say. But I just remember she turned to me this day, and I just had tears. I still bring tears to my eyes now. She said to me, Mummy, enough, enough. I said, Chrissy, what? And this doctor and these two nurses were busy doing it. They didn't know what was going on. They wouldn't have realized this is something Chrissy doesn't say. She says, Mummy, enough, enough, finish, finish, enough, enough. Like she had enough. She doesn't want this anymore. So you know what? I just bawled my eyes out, I think, all that night in hospital. And I just knew she was trying to tell me she couldn't do this anymore. I'm sick of being rushed to hospital. I'm sick of feeling like this. And so I rang up the next day. I said, can we just do this operation? Can we get this done? Chrissy needs this done. Oh, Moira, it doesn't work like this. We have to just wait till we get a date again. And I remember the day I went in the theatre nurse at the Austin, the renal nurse at the Austin came down to the room before I went in. Geez, Moira, you're pretty good, aren't you? I said, geez, I just thought you'd be nervous. I've come in specifically to see you go to sleep and whatever. I said, no, no, I just want to take it out. I'm fine. I'm great. Just get this thing out of me and take it to the children's. I said, because I just knew where Chrissy was coming from. So sometimes it takes a child to remind you. Not that I need. I was going to do it anyway, but I wasn't so nervous or nothing after I saw, because kids like Trishy and people like that, sometimes they just have enough and they want to give up. So they need people like us not to give up on them. Yeah, to see your kids and people suffer like that, and someone you love. It doesn't have to be someone you love. It could be someone stranger as well. We have an opportunity to do something good. And I just wanted this done then. I was just couldn't wait to get it out of my body and into hers. Yes. Well, I just put that with a note there. Sometimes wisdom doesn't always come in suits. Sometimes young people and children have a lot to teach us. But the recovery for her, when we were at a hospital, I got out after 6 days, and I went to the children's for a couple of days with her, and then we came home. So I'd be on the couch going, just for a couple of days, and she'd be hopping around the house with an iPad and dancing and singing. So I used to laugh, thinking, it's either you're in a really good way or my kidney's doing a great job. We just have a lot of jokes. So yeah, I was back to normal in a couple of weeks, and it's great because you get sport and people start looking up to you for a change, which is unusual. So yeah, so there was a lot of highs and lows, but most of it was positive. And to see this, and the amazing thing is, Catherine, Trishy's learning better now. She's walking, she's talking, she's happier. And I couldn't work out what it was. And I just said to the nephrologist last year at the kids, I said, I've worked out what it was. Is because she's never felt so well in her life and she couldn't tell us. And she's just come on leaps and bounds. And sometimes we look, oh, wow, Trishy, what did you say then? So she's the happiest human being on the place here. She's the most beautiful thing on two legs. So she runs the house and we just love her. And we wouldn't change for a quid. So just having think that we've done a kidney in that little girl is just even a bonus. But sometimes when she's naughty, I say, listen, Chrissy, behave yourself. I'm giving you my kidney behavior. Look after my kidney in there. And or someone comes in, oh, anyone where Chrissy is? Oh, yeah, she's in the backyard with my kidney in the other room. So many people can say those things. So
Not
yeah,
many
so
people
it was a
can.
no, they can't. Exactly.
No.
Yes. See, my mum only had one kidney all her life. She didn't even know that until she was having babies. So a lot of people only have one kidney, not realizing. So my mum lived to the late 80s. So yeah, you can survive on one kidney for sure.
And it's interesting you're saying that very big difference between someone who has gone through the process of managing their health through a chronic illness, and then all of a sudden they have a new organ which allows them to thrive in a way that they never have been able to.
Yeah, she's just a different person. And now I've heard it from other people too, but I didn't put two and two together. And we've just seen a little person evolve into this beautiful young girl with lots of energy and happiness. And yeah, it's just amazing. We became a sort of a norm for her before. And now we realize what the potential was. So yeah, I often say we all have a spare. So, we all have one there if we want to do something altruistic in our life and, it's something for someone else. And so, yeah, that's why I'm really passionate about it now, realizing, wow, I wish I'd known this sooner, but if I had, because he might not have got my kidney. So, and, my son Emmanuel, the first thing he said was, Mum, put me on the list to donate. I said, well, I'll put you on the list right there. So he was amazing how many people have said, oh, gee, I would like to do something like that as well. I'm inquiring. So until you start talking about it, you don't realize people don't know. So, and then just one of my volunteers here today, she's a Scottish girl. She heard I was doing this podcast and she says, Moira, I just want you to know, it took me 1 minute, but I've just registered. I can't believe I've just registered as a donor
Oh, that's
for
fantastic.
Donate Live. Yeah, she just told me an hour before this podcast. I said, oh, what makes you? I felt embarrassed. I couldn't believe I hadn't done it. And she just registered just an hour ago before this podcast. So if someone gets one person out there with these beautiful sympathetic ears listens today, they might think, just, plant the seed. I figure plant the seed. So there's live donors, but there's also donors out there who, like what Yasmina's just done, my good friend who works here full time as a volunteer. So wow, it hadn't dawned on her that she hadn't done it.
And that's the thing. I think that a lot of people, I know when I went for my license many years ago, it was part of the process that with your license. Whereas now it's just a matter of going onto the website and you can check whether you're registered. And then also you can actually register as well. So as you said, it
Wow.
was very simple for your friend to do. And it is, it's a really simple process.
I didn't realize that one donor, deceased donor, can provide 7 organs, save 7 people's lives, which I didn't realize that either. I was shocked. You always think of the kidney, the heart, and but it can save 7 people's lives. I was amazed at that as well. So wow,
It's
phenomenal.
phenomenal, isn't it? And something that people ask me quite a lot when I speak to sort of probus groups and those sorts of community organisations. People are always concerned that there might be a use by date on their organs. And something that I found out when I did a podcast with Donate Life last year was the fact that corneas are still something that don't age, which I'm
Yeah.
like, corneas of all things, you know?
I heard that once too. Yes, I did hear that 90-year-olds can donate a cornea, so
Yeah.
to give people a second chance. So yeah, we all can be donors, and I suppose the important thing too is having a conversation without sounding too cliche, but also like letting family members know that you really want to do this. So Yasmina, that's why she got embarrassed more. I'm just embarrassed. I've been living with you for how long? And I hadn't realized until today that I hadn't registered. It's just one of these things
Yeah.
we're always going to do. So it's also probably promoting the fact that we're going to do it. Have you done it? So that's probably a good way to get out of this podcast today is, yes, it's something I'm thinking about. Rather thinking about, have you done it? So, yeah, so that's what taught me just by Yasmina saying that. So, yeah, amazing. And yeah, it just shows you, but you don't have to wait till you die. You can give a kidney now. There's 14,000 Australians wait on dialysis. So yeah, we
Yeah.
need more good Australians just out there helping other Australians.
And tell me, with given the fact that you've gone through that process and you weighed it up in your own head about what you had to go through and what you were facing, because it is still major surgery that you had to go through yourself. What would you say to someone who has come out the other side and then seen the difference that it's made with Chrissy? What would you say to people who might be a little bit afraid but do want to actually help someone who might be near them that's suffering?
Well, you know what? Probably the team at the children's work specifically with the child, and whether it's an adult at the Royal Melbourne or the Austin, they have a team that is so it's so kind and so caring and take you through all the whole process at the Austin. And they really look after their donors. That's one thing I realised. And they said, oh, Moira, yeah, we get the room here. I said, oh, I don't want to have a room of my own, just as long as I'm not with a fella, but give it to the old people. So, oh, Moira, we will, but we always look after our donors. And whenever you're unwell or whatever, you always have a priority because they have such respect for the donors. So all the journey through, from the specialist to the test to every once they know you're a donor, you've got to, because they put you on a priority list for all the scans because they need to get you done quickly because you've got a sick person waiting for you. everywhere you go, people treat you with such kindness and goodness, and they're just so grateful. And they go, "Oh, wow, you're a donor." They still have that, even though they see them, they get a, "Oh, I see on your paper you're a diver. Oh, well done. How'd you get into that?" So even hospital staff ask you that. So, yeah, I don't know. You're supported so beautifully, and even after you get out of hospital, the team look after you for the rest of your life. Like you see them every year or every 6 months, you hear from them. So, the donors are really looked after. If you ever got unwell and you needed a donor, you'd be on the top of the list as well. So, donors are absolutely treated like the gold platter, basically, in a beautiful way as well. There's only one funny thing that happened to me once, was because during COVID, some of the appointments I couldn't go in for. So you had to also have a mental health check. So there was this psychologist or psychiatrist, I think she was a registrar at the Austin, and so I knew I had this appointment. So I was quickly cooked dinner and I came out here and I got on the Zoom, and so I had something on the stove as well, right? So I'll do this questionnaire and she's asking me these questions and I have to laugh sometimes because my father's an Irishman. I went to school and all, so I'm a very fast talker, right? So in the middle of these questions, she's asking me about questions. She says, "Oh, Moira, I just need to ask you a question." I said, "Yeah, yeah, what's that?" I said, "Do you like shopping?" And I said, "Do I like what? Do I like shopping?" I says, "Well, actually, tell the truth, no, I can't stand shopping. It does my head in." I said, "I can't understand why people want to browse and look at things. I don't have people have the time." I says, I thought, no, stupid question. I says, back up a bit. Now, you asked me the question for? We're talking about the donation of kidney here, if I'm okay with this." "Oh no, Moira, I'm just trying to work out if you are bipolar or something because you talk very fast, and fast people often are they're bipolar or schizophrenic or whatever else." I says, "Are you for real? So if I was, do you think I was going to tell you anyway?" So there's always some funny things that come out during this journey. So I
Oh,
was
that's
telling the team, the children
funny.
laugh. Yeah, so don't like shopping and don't talk too fast or you have a. So I had to laugh. So the team of the children, they all knew me for years. They were all laughing. I says, "Well, they must have got you on a slow day." I says, "Yeah, I had something on the oven, so I was trying to get this
Preoccupied.
appointment over." Yeah, right. So they cover every base, they tick all the boxes. So yeah, so I passed the mental health check anyway.
That's always good to know. And tell me,
Yeah,
Moira, like,
you've got to have a sense of humor with all this. You can't take it all too serious.
you do. And I think with everything that you have witnessed in your life and the areas that you work in have always had some element of crisis or trauma or unrest in the spaces that you've been. What has that taught you about life itself?
Probably how precious it is. Like I lived in Romania for about a year and a half, nearly 2 years. I was in charge of an Irish organisation for kids with AIDS, and we lost, over 20 something children, and they all died in threes, and they died at different times. And yeah, you just never realize the world can sometimes be so cruel, and how can little children, little children are not meant to suffer, Catherine. And sometimes I felt that the world, they know what's going on over here. These little kids are just as precious as children with Australian passports. So you just realize how precious life is if you have an opportunity to fix a little kid up. That's one little child you've saved. I can't imagine all these doctors, especially these surgeons and doctors who must lie on a soft pillow at night, knowing that they go to home at night thinking they've made someone well and they've saved someone's life. And so don't you want to be a part of that? Like something really good like that you really made a difference. So, I mean, you don't really want to be a part of something good that really makes a difference in people's lives. And I mean, they do this every day just to get a taste of this for a couple of weeks in your whole life or once a year. I mean, don't you all want to be part of something good? So you can't help it when you get a kid fixed and you think, "Oh, Giles," and you hear another child, of course you want to help them. And I think as humans, we're all empathetic and we're all good people. We all want to help others and we want to have a chance to help others. And sometimes we just don't know how. So yeah, I always remember this great surgeon at the World Children's. He was run out of a function one night and I saw him. I ran after him and I just said, "Oh, listen, he's a heart surgeon at the kids." And I said, "Listen, thank you so much for coming tonight. I can't believe you found the time." He goes, "Oh, no problems." I said to him that night, I said, "You must lay on a soft pillow every night for all those little children you operate. You've done like 30 of my kids' heart operations. You must just be the happiest man on earth." He says, "Moira," he said, "always remember," and I live by this motto, Catherine, "always remember one child is still one life." And rather than look at the big numbers, let's so try that life in front of you is so important. So whether you're a donor for an adult or a child or whatever, it's still one life. So don't underestimate the enormity of that, and don't look at the big numbers. Just look what's in front of you, how precious life is. And you just want to be around something that's good and warm and fuzzy and full of goodness. It's only good things can be around something when you're helping someone else like this. So yeah, I look at them and I suppose in life, Catherine, we always see the good in others before we see the good in ourselves as well. But we all want to be know that we're good people, but we're also good for others, and create goodness in the world.
It's interesting that you say that because the people that you're talking about are skilled professionals and they are doing their role. But you've gone a little bit beyond that, haven't you, Moira? With actually donating your own kidney to save someone's life. Not everyone
Well,
can
I
do
really
that.
see. I don't really think that like that. I just think it wasn't even a second thought in my head. There's not a mother and a father out there that probably wouldn't think twice about it. It's funny because my dad's an Irishman, and I said to Dad one day, he says, "Oh, Moira, I know what you're doing. You sure you're doing this?" I said, "Dad, put it this way, because my dad's an Irishman, so you've got to appreciate the sense of humour." I said, "Dad, if I need a kidney, for God's sake, I know you give me a kidney. I bloody would not give you one, Moira." He says, I'm sure he probably would, but he was just trying to get my reaction. But you've got to have a sense of humour because even through the journey, there's ups and downs. But for the terrible times at Chrissy, there've been lots of fun as well. And even during the journey with the doctors at the end of your bears, the nurses, there's jokes and there's talks and there's miracles and there's all that. There's highs and lows. I often say these buildings of hospitals are wonderful structures of miracles performing those doors every day, but there is also great sadness. It's like when I suppose when you're a deceased donor, you look in one room, it's full of joy that someone's got this wonderful hope, and yet there's so sadness somewhere else. So yeah, those buildings of hope have got lots of incredible moments of people's highs and lows in life that sometimes we're a part of or sometimes we're outside. We don't know, but everyone's got a journey. And mine was this one. Mine was a no-brainer. It was something I was so excited to do. Mm.
And when we're talking there about hope, can we talk a little bit about a project that we both just chatted about before we came on air that involves the architect from the Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria, Andrew Laidlaw, and that's the
Very
Peace
good, great
Gardens.
man. It's a
Yes.
global partnership piece. That's right.
Yeah.
So Andrews came out to Gaza with me a couple of times because we're going to build a children's garden because I brought a lot of kids out from Gaza for surgery as well, from all over the world. And having said that, lots of kids also get operated in Israel as well during that time. There were some kids that needed to come to Oz, and Andrew came out there. And I just told when I came back from Gaza on one of my trips, I was given the contact of Andrew, and he's a bit out there as well, so he's in for a bit of an adventure and something different. And the Palestinian government at the time had given me land, which is unheard of. It's a long story. I won't go into today. And because I told them I'd build them a garden, I didn't think it was going to be that difficult. I'm sure people in Australia could build us a garden in Gaza. And if you give us land, I'm sure the Australian people would do that for you. So anyway, about 6 months later, I got this title of land in my name. And make a long story short, I thought, oh God, this is getting a bit real. They're going to come back with land. And Andrew came on. He's been on a few trips with me. And yeah, we were, after so many years, we finally had the tender out. And 2 weeks before this particular war started, yeah, we just didn't go ahead. But Andrew's gone ahead with the foundation. I've sort of been busy these days, but I'm just the patron. But there's gardens being built all over vulnerable communities here in Melbourne and in Victoria that Andrew's spearheaded with the Global Gardens of Peace. They have their meetings at the Botanical Gardens, and so that's still going ahead. And that was the seed that came out of Gaza, all these beautiful gardens here in Melbourne in vulnerable communities. So that's still continuing. But what a small world. You worked with Andrew there, and we just had to discuss the same person we knew, a mutual, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human being. Yeah, he's very special. He's got a great sense of humor. And I always saw spirituality in a different way, in a constructive size. And I just saw my work in humanitarian a bit different. And when I met Andrew, I just saw the same values as humanitarian and spiritual wise in Andrew. And I just thought, wow, artist people are very similar to humanitarian people. And I had never put that across, never seen that until I met Andrew, that I realized the spiritual connection that artist people have with humanitarians, because he's definitely a very artistic. Yeah, I don't quite know how Andrew's brain works, but he's got this incredible gift to be able to design and picture something in these unique places and what he's put together in different places now. But he's made me realize the connection that humanitarians have, that these artist people have on a real humanitarian level to another level that was phenomenal. So to see how he sees things and how it's going to help people and really look at the core of people, he taught me a lot, Andrew, just by listening and observing him. So yeah, humanitarian and artist people have lots of gel with each other. We're very similar people. So yeah, he taught me a lot about that. So that will still happen one day, Catherine. But at the moment, Global Gardens of Peace is very passionate about building these beautiful green spaces in vulnerable communities here in Melbourne. So yeah, so what a small world.
It is. And tell me, what do you think the connection is and in relation to spirituality? And where does your spirituality sit now, given everything that you've seen? Do you still have a strong faith? Is it of a particular religion? How has it evolved over time?
Well, I suppose one thing I've also learned as I've gone along my way, because I've lived in a lot of countries overseas for like 15 years in different religions. And I think all religion represents something good. And I think if all of us, as the followers of religion, if we all listen to our leaders of faith, they all practice exactly the same sermons, but sometimes we get misconstrued, But they all talk about kindness and empathy and giving and charity and forgiveness. Everyone talks about that. Doesn't matter what religion you are. But it's the followers who sometimes misinterpret that. I'm a conventional old Catholic Mick, coming from a Catholic traditional family, but my kids come from different
And an
religions.
Irish family.
Yeah, exactly. Then I have volunteers and people I've met on my journey who are spiritual by going to a park and a beach. And so sometimes we all connect in our own way. So it may not be something like me that's a very Catholic sort of background, but spirituality can be shared in different ways. So I respect and sort of accept them all. And look, you never know. We look up to it. Could be Jehovah, could be Muhammad, could be Lord, who knows when we get upstairs. But we all, as long as we've had a good life and we remember to do kind to others, and don't underestimate the good that you can do for others too. It's not about the world here we live in, that we just do things for ourselves. We have a bigger community. We're all born in this world right now forever. Like, one of the reasons I went to Bosnia was, look, I wasn't around for World War II, and I can't look at war movies. I just couldn't, because I felt so frustrated. But I know in years to come, kids will go back and say, well, what did you do in the Bosnian War? What did you do at the Gaza War? What did you do in the World War II? I said, well, I wasn't here for World War II, but I was here for the Bosnian War, and I was alive. And I could do something. Not everyone has to pull their sleeves up and go to Bosnia, but there's things you can do to support the communities here in Melbourne and the Ukraines and the people. Just because we're Australian doesn't mean these things are not our problems. And it's a funny world we live in. It depends on what passport you own, as whether you live or die. So sometimes we complain about our governments and our countries, but the three most important things in your life besides your health and family are your passport or your Medicare card. And people still complain about that. So until you go to places where, unfortunately, the children I meet, they just own the wrong passport, and they're not entitled to the same healthcare as children in Australia, which is, to me, I never knew that existed till I lived overseas. So that's probably what drives me a lot, Catherine, is rather than complain about it, do something about it.
And looking
Yeah.
forward, Moira, what do you think that the next 5-10 years will look like for you? What projects are you currently working on?
Well, we've got some other kids arriving from overseas pretty soon, and I'd like to get another house in Melbourne. And the foundation are hoping to get some land not far from Melbourne, close to the city, where we're going to put some cottages on for carers and for women at risk, because we also have our home here in Melbourne, and we've got another one setting up now. Is also, apart from the sick kids, we also have women who are either pregnant, who have children, who are homeless for some reason, and as long as they've got no drug and alcohol problems, we move them in here as well. So we'd like to set up a sort of a place like that, not a refuge, but a home for them. We take sort of women on long term. So a lot of our women come through the Sisters of Mother Teresa here in Fitzroy, because they know that they'd be suited in our home. But we'd like to set up a place not far out of Melbourne where we could have women and families who just can't afford to go on holidays, like carers and single mums, and still also offer sort of a sanctuary for women who are going through terrible ordeals, apart from our sick kids. So that's something we want to grow and have a legacy there as well. So yeah, so there's always something beautiful to be done in this beautiful world of ours.
And what does that word legacy mean to you, Moira?
I suppose you want to be able to look back and think that you did something good in your life. And maybe, like, I look at Mother Teresa, she's not with us now, but her legacy lives on in me. When people talk about her, I tell her funny stories, and the crack Mother Teresa had, she was great fun. So that's a legacy that's sometimes not all necessarily holy and thou. She was a fun woman from Albania. She had a great sense of humour. And look what she's done to the world. These people that still talk about to the day, to our own grandparents, and the next grandparents don't survive. So I look at her legacy and I think no one can hit that high, but to be able to know that you've been a good person and you've made a difference in the world, and some life has come from your life. So like, I'd love, Catherine, years to come, is to go around and travel some of the countries in the world and find some of the kids I took to America or to Ireland or here, and see not how they are, but the life that's come from that life. Like, I often think in Bosnia, the first two boys I brought to Australia, they may not remember Moira Kelly and they may not remember Melbourne, but they know people in Australia were there when they needed them. And that's what life's about. It's not about leaving your own name and leaving monuments, but it's about knowing that people cared for them in their darkest hours. And just because we're Australian didn't mean it wasn't our problem. It is our problem. So they know people, they'll talk to their grandparents. Oh, yeah, those children, we had people went to Australia. The Australian people looked after kids in Bosnia. I mean, that's a great legacy for our culture and for our people, because we are a caring nation. So it's not about it's not about Moira Kelly. It's about us as a community and that people did care about them. It's how those people felt, So yeah, I think that's what's more important is that the mark you've left on the people's lives, that they meant something.
And Moira, I'd have to say that would make an amazing documentary that I'd definitely watch.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple of us, a friend Murray and Louise from us want to travel when we do that just to find out where they are. And I don't even know where to go. I don't know exactly where to go and find the life that's come from their life. I think that says a lot about, that old saying the doctor said, don't forget one child is still one life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the
Oh,
ripple
thank you.
effect of that would be amazing.
And also, Catherine, the generations of people in those communities will always know that country, Australia, they took some people from here. I mean, the goodwill there, that people care just because we're Australians. Wow, they took people from here.
Yeah.
There's a child years ago to Australia and got fixed. I mean, that's what the world's about. Yeah, breaking down barriers and really, we're not as big, we're not far away as we are. We care about you. So yeah, their life is as precious as well. Have the wrong passport, but your life is precious. Yeah, we do care. And we don't want any money, want any rewards. We don't want payment. We don't want presents. We did it just because of the right thing to do. Mm.
Moira, I think that is a beautiful ideology and a version of legacy that I'd really like to see.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Good on you, Catherine. You've been a wonderful interviewer too, by the way. So thanks for having me. And I hope
Thanks.
you and I today could have performed a miracle. There could be a couple of people there today who says, "Yeah, I want to be a live donor." So
Here's
I
hoping,
hope
hey?
that.
We'll have the link in the show notes, people. So jump online, check what your status is. And if you're not an organ donor and you feel comfortable to do so, sign up.
And also just look at Donate Life for all that sort of information because they're the experts on this and they live this every day. So they get those wonderful phone calls to tell a family that someone's been saved. They also get the hard ones. So yeah, they're pretty magic people in there.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Moira.
Good on you. God bless, Catherine, and good luck to everyone. And have a great year, guys. And just keep an eye out for the Donate Life program and just even spread the word. Good on you, Catherine. Thank you.
Don't be caught dead forgetting to subscribe. And here are some more videos we know you'll love.